Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Louise, and in this video I'm going to be going over what I read in January as well as my TBR for February. I also want to talk about my word count for January as well as my January and February goals for my writing. So first I'm going to talk about my writing because that's going to be the quicker thing to talk about. My goal over the course of the year is to write 120,000 words total, which means that I need to write 10,000 words per month. In the month of January, I wrote 11,418 words over a variety of different projects I've been working on. Honestly, I'm really proud of those 11,000 words because I don't think I've written 11,000 words in a single month in probably about 2 years, honestly. But my writing goal for February is going to be another 10,000 words. But on to what I read in January. So the first book that I read in January was The Terror by Dan Simmons. Technically it took me almost 2 months to read it. I started it November 21st and I finished it January 11th, but it counts towards the 2024 reading goal. The Terror is about the Franklin expedition. It's got a supernatural horror twist to it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was really good. It's a great book to read during the winter months. The second book that I read in the month of January actually qualifies more as a novella rather than a full novel, but it was All Systems Red by Martha Wells, the first book in the Murderbot series. I started reading that January 11th and I finished reading it on January 17th. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. There wasn't a whole lot that I liked about the main character. Like, all of the other characters were really interesting. The world building was interesting. The thread of a conspiracy theory going on behind the scenes was really interesting, but it was just kind of the main character that I didn't really care for a whole lot. I felt that a novella just wasn't enough space to really build any character more than just a little bit. The third book that I read in the month of January was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I started reading that January 21st and I finished reading that January 25th. It's about a psychotherapist trying to get to the bottom of why one of his new patients has been completely silent since she murdered her husband. It's a very fast-paced story, but I found the twist near the end wasn't really all that gratifying to me. But I did read a majority of this book in like a day. I think I read probably 70% of this book just in one sitting, really. It was 336 pages, so it wasn't like huge. It also wasn't small, but the pacing really helped make it an easy read. But those are the 3 books I read in January. It was a pretty satisfying month, I think. I really enjoyed The Terror, but I don't think January is going to have any of my favorite books of the year. So my TBR for February feels a little ambitious because I have 2 kind of big books that I really want to read this month. The first book that's on my TBR I'm reading on my Kindle. It's Dead House Gates, which is the second book in the Malazan series written by Steven Erikson. I'm about 16% of the way into this book already, and I really enjoy it. I find the world building in the Malazan series is very realistic and very interesting. It feels less fantasy and more real world sort of world building. The second book that's on my February TBR is Brandon Sanderson's The Way of Kings, because I want to catch up to the Stormlight Archive before book 5 comes out at the end of this year. I have also started reading The Way of Kings already, which reading both of these books at the same time, both Malazan and Stormlight Archive, kind of isn't the best idea. The way that I keep these fantasy stories straight in my head is that the Malazan series got the more realistic world building, whereas the Stormlight Archive absolutely has some of the weirder and more magically pronounced world building. But I have been really enjoying what I've read so far for The Way of Kings, and I'm absolutely stoked to read more. Of course, I do find Sanderson's writing way easier to digest than Erikson's writing. Malazan I find to be really dense, and I have to really put my brain power into it, and I just find it difficult to read through a whole lot of it all at once. Whereas with the Sanderson books I've read, they've all been really easy reads. Like his Secret Projects, with the exception of Sunlit Man, I read each of those books in a day. I still haven't read Sunlit Man. That's a book that I'm kind of pushing off until I catch up with the archive as well. The last book that is on my TBR for February is Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I found myself really loving the terror, and I think becoming familiar with Dan Simmons' writing in the terror is going to make reading Hyperion a lot easier. The few times that I've tried reading Hyperion, and I've tried reading it 2 or 3 times, I found the writing to be kind of, not depressing, kind of drab, kind of boring, but I think now that I'm familiar with his writing and I know that I enjoy his writing, I'll probably find a lot of love in Hyperion. So my TBR for February is kind of ambitious, but I think I can probably read all 3 of these books in the month of February. And where I think that January was a little bit lacking in my love for books, I think February is going to be full of books that I end up absolutely loving. But that's all I've got for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like. And if you're interested in what I have to say about any of these books when I finish them, please consider subscribing. Thank you again. Bye!